Women have spectacular bodies, and I'm not talking about the women selected by our male-dominated media to provide the eye candy that keeps many of us silent and feeling second best. I'm talking all women and their incredible bodies, full of reproductive potential that, in an ideal world, they could choose to employ or not to employ as and when and if they wished. Of course, we don't live in an ideal world, we never have, and history is littered with attempts to control the awesome reproductive power of women. Women are actually so remarkable that many religions unleashed higher male powers that instigated fear in their followers and imposed rules on those living in areas where those ideologies held sway. In many countries, this history of control of women based on medieval needs to maintain female subservience in the pecking order is sadly not, well, it's not history. Today we're gathered in such a country, Ireland, where the present is littered with rules and regulations and restrictions, the sole aim of which is to control women. Such rules control women, such rules restrict women, such rules punish women, such rules, sadly, as the case of Savita Halappanavar showed, kill women. It is an uncomfortable and dangerous place to be. Savita Halappanavar's father, Andanappa Yalagi, talking to Kitty Holland of the Irish Times at his home in Belgaum in India last week, said that the family, quote, "were shocked when we heard about this law about abortion in Ireland. This is an evil law. How can this be called a Christian law? God is merciful. He does not want women to die. Religion should have nothing to do with medicine. We are Hindu, and Savita was Hindu and very religious. She worshipped every day. But that is religion. It should have nothing to do with medicine." He's right. Religion should have nothing to do with medicine. Last weekend in Ireland, every Catholic parish in the state got a letter from the Roman Catholic bishops. The leaflet pointed out that there is no appeal process for the unborn and stated that a baby in the womb is voiceless. That was leaflet number 5 in a series of 10 leaflets the Catholic bishops will be delivering over the coming weeks. While they are telling the people of Ireland what to do, they might take time to listen to the man whose life has been ruined by the avoidable loss of his daughter in an Irish hospital for want of a swift termination of her unviable pregnancy. The loss of his daughter, who was refused a termination and told by the midwife that she could not have one as the fetal heartbeat was still detectable. It was a Catholic thing, the midwife told Savita. It is indeed a Catholic thing that was inserted into our constitution as Article 43.3 in 1983. The Catholic hierarchy campaigned with vigour and spoke out in favour of that amendment, but the amendment was opposed by the other mainstream churches in Ireland, demonstrating that there is no such thing as a monolithic divine truth in the matter of a woman's reproductive rights. Working with former assistant master of the Rotunda Hospital in Dublin, and he founded the IFPA as well, Dr. Michael Sullivans, as he wrote his memoirs, Pro-Life, the Irish Question, in 1992, we had cause to spend many an afternoon drinking tea and discussing the origins of reproductive policing of women in world religions. In the book, Dr. Sullivans asked, when does life begin? This is the question at the heart of any consideration of the medical practice of abortion. There is, of course, no definitive answer, he continued. Different individuals, cultures, and denominations hold different views. This makes the imposition of a single view of abortion on an entire people seem ludicrous. When the ludicrous becomes the callous and the disastrous, as it did with Savita Halappanavar in Galway last October, it is surely time to call a halt to the rigid dominance of any single doctrine. It is worth noting here that the Catholic doctrine concerning the beginning of life and abortion changed at least 6 times between the 3rd century and 1869, when Pope Pius IX reaffirmed the belief that life begins at conception and decreed against the practice of abortion. The Church of Ireland also believes human life begins at conception, but makes a distinction between the biological life and being a person. At the Oireachtas hearings on what was then the Protection of Maternal Life Bill in January 2013, Church of Ireland Archbishop Michael Jackson said the current, no relation, said the current position was very unclear, and he welcomed the government's decision to legislate. That view was echoed by Heidi Good of the Methodist Church and Trevor Morrow, who was representing the Presbyterian Church. In Judaism, rabbinic opinions on when life begins also vary. According to Dr. Sullivans, the term unborn has no place in rabbinic doctrine. At January's abortion hearings, Rabbi Zalman Lent said that from a Jewish point of view, every single case is taken on an individual basis and a decision taken on that basis. Islam, meanwhile, teaches that the soul is inspired no earlier than 40 days and no later than 120 days after conception. Abortion is permitted for fetal abnormalities and maternal indications up to 120 days, but after that, only if the mother's life is seriously threatened. Dr. Ali Salim of the Islamic Cultural Centre of Ireland told the hearings that if physical or psychological problems were considered by a doctor and they considered that abortion was the only option, then he himself would say yes to that abortion. Surely, when there is a lack of ultimate truths in doctrines that believe that ultimate truths are their stock in trade, it is better to allow the women concerned, to choose what to do with their own bodies. Given the lack of consensus across world religions about abortion, it should surely be unconscionable that any nation should seek to codify the beliefs of any one religious doctrine into its laws. It should be. But as the battle for control of the bodies of the women living in Ireland rages on, we know we're in a place far away from justice, personal choice and personal safety. In 1992, the Irish Supreme Court ruled that a woman is entitled to an abortion in this country if her life is threatened, including by risk of suicide. In December 2010, the Grand Chamber of the European Court of Human Rights found that the Irish state had failed to implement a woman's existing right to a lawful abortion. That vindication of the ECHR judgment requires legislation by the Irish government. That legislation, we are told, will be in place by the summer recess. That is the legislation currently being fought tooth and nail by the Catholic Church, whose pamphlets and pulpit pastorals, at their most oblique, are stating that women in Ireland are worth only as much as a fertilised ovum. That women are duplicitous, cunning creatures who will raise the floodgates and solicit abortion on request in this state by feigning suicidal ideation. Savita Halappanavar's father, Anthea McTiernan, said that India looked up to Ireland in its battle for independence from Britain. Now he wonders how Ireland can be called a republic. A republic has laws that are for everyone. A republic looks after all its people, he said. Ialagi asked why, 20 years after the Supreme Court ruling in the X case, the government had not enacted legislation. A country should respect its Supreme Court. Its own Supreme Court makes a ruling and the government does nothing, he said. If the government had respected its own court, my Savita would have been alive today. They must change the law to save women's health. Women's health is as important as a man's. If the law does not do that, Savita has been sacrificed for nothing. If it is confident in its ultimate truths, the Catholic Church must stop its insistence on that Catholic thing of letting women die on hospital beds after they've begged for a termination. The final words should go to Mr. Ialagi. Religion should have nothing to do with medicine.